Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating it's Saturday, August 4th, 2018. In both the Lynn Life and the Jamie Body Mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as the souls are already living by the Search for Truth rules given to the Search for Truth community by wiser minds above all of us. And if we are not looking up to wiser minds above and asking up, what now in order to fulfill my soul plan, or what now in order to fill some facet of the soul plan, which in this case is the plan to create worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience. That is what the soul plan commits us to doing, and to doing that no matter what anyone else does or do. Well, they really just don't want to say it, but it's still true. That is the soul plan. These host lives were part of an experiment of precisely 1 million souls, 1,000,000 souls on this planet in this dimension, who were given the soul plan of basically the Christ presences, but without the title and without the resources.
That's true.
The soul plan to create worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do. And as best we can tell, those are ironclad contracts. We have been told by many extremely good channels in other dimensions that those are ironclad contracts, clang clang, no getting out of them, and that's fine. We're not trying to get out of them. We actually think that there is value in creating worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience, and we don't see anybody else stepping up. And so it's not that we think we're oh so great, because that isn't it. We see the need, and until somebody else is doing it better consistently elsewhere, then we'll do what we can. We start where we are, use what we have, do what we can. And this requires that we all look up to wiser minds above all of us and ask, what now, in order to create worlds that work in all dimensions and for all categories of sentience? What now? All that we still see playing out still seems to be clinging to the same old plan.
That's true.
The same old plan seems to boil down to higher powers somehow bullying the lesser presences into living their soul plans. And what we have found in the projects, which was an 8-month effort involving 6 million souls and a lot of other resources also, is that doesn't actually work. We can't make anybody do anything.
That's true.
We can only get people to do things that they actually want to do already.
That's true.
For example, we can get someone who's on a restrictive diet to break their diet.
Yes, that's true.
But that's not helpful, and it doesn't create worlds that work.
No.
We did not find a way to break oppositional defiant disorder to the soul plan, and by we mean the souls who are operating through this collective during that 8-month effort.
That's true.
Why do you ask? Why do you ask that? I think it's in response to the recent inquiry of this past week, where there are good souls who are saying, if there were to be a backup plan to that plan A, what might some ideas be for that backup plan? Because otherwise we are headed directly for complete collapse, and that just doesn't seem like the most desirable outcome.
That's true.
So if there were to be a backup plan to avert complete collapse, what might some ideas be? Someone is pointing to the issue of breathing and how it actually seems to be that there isn't actually anybody taking responsibility for breathing
That's true.
in any aspect of self, that at the level of the planet expects its cells to breathe. We are basically of the level that we are cells, these host lives and everything in this level dimension are cells in the body of the planet.
That's true.
And we think our own cells should somehow be responsible for breathing. When we drop down into the consciousness of the cells of these host lives, we discover that they also believe their cells should be responsible for breathing.
That's true.
And what's happening is that nobody is taking responsibility for breathing, and therefore a lot of presences are probably tired and probably a little confused and not operating at optimal functioning because they're not breathing properly.
That's true.
What now in order to breathe over and over and over again? What now to take responsibility for breathing? We can correct the errors of dodging responsibility.
Oh, that's true.
Hello, my old friend, dodging responsibility. Thank you for being such a loyal companion. Let's correct this error. Dodging responsibility doesn't actually work. If there were to be a backup plan to avert complete collapse, what might some ideas be? We can meanwhile evacuate the deeper, denser dimensions while they're thinking, because this is an idea that has been put on the table and has been worked with for a year or two, maybe longer, but not with the full support of the entire multidimensional team. Actually, with a lot of oppositional defiant disorder reactions.
That's true.
To the assignment, which is, let's just give it a try. Let's see what happens if we evacuate the dead souls out of the depths, out of the smaller dimensions, and see if it somehow creates an opening in the foundations of life so that some of these deep-seated unhelpful patterns can change. What now to evacuate the even deeper, denser dimensions? And now we just pump up from wherever Pan is working below. Just come up through the heels and the backs of the legs and up the spines and the neck, cranium, and up through the big, heavy, tangled channels of the visiting souls to the highest powers we can connect with right now, who are looking up to wiser minds above them, asking up what now in order to, let's say, evacuate the even deeper, denser dimensions. Or actually, I don't really care what they're looking up and asking up, as long as it's some facet of their soul plan.
That's true.
So any higher power who's looking up, asking up what now in order to, and then insert some facet of their soul plan, and then doing whatever it is that wiser minds above say to do, not second guessing, other than issues of safety or conflicting instructions.
That's
just
true.
Doing it. Sending it up to the highest powers we can connect with right now that are looking up, asking up, and doing. Are there any other ideas on what we can do other than just pumping up over and over again various categories? Pump up electrons, pump up dead children and their environments, pump up refugees, pump up neutrons, etc. Various categories of presences. Any other ideas, or is this all we can do? Do you hear anything?
Someone upstairs is talking about something that was coming up in the work maybe yesterday, about how when we work with personal healing sessions in Ground Zero, who is the client?
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about how for, 10 years, the working theory was that the client, the real client, is the soul.
Oh, more like 25 years. That was the working theory.
That's true.
The real client is the soul.
That's true.
The higher soul, in particular. The higher soul.
That's true.
somebody's asking why the higher soul.
That's what someone said.
Because the resident soul is in the thick of the life, and it's very difficult to see our stuff, all of us, no exceptions in all dimensions. And so there's supposed to be a one up, one down working relationship where there's a voice with clearer perspective who can see the life and who is giving guidance to the soul in the life. And so we're supposed to view that higher soul with the clearer perspective as the client, because they're more likely to be pleased when something is turning out as it should, whereas the person in the life, the soul in the life, is more likely to be pleased with something more short-term and something easier.
That's true.
Why do you ask? I can't tell why they're asking. Go ahead.
And now they're talking about how recently it seems like who the client, quote unquote, is different. It's not the same as it was for 25 years. And they're talking about the soul contract and the soul plan.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is somebody else is talking now, and they're talking about the era of soul change and how there's so many different ways that souls and bodies can get disconnected from each other.
That's
just
true.
Souls can get caught up in the astral currents and carried away in an overnight, and they're confused and the life is confused, and they just never get matched up again, and that happens an awful lot.
That's true.
And in addition, there are souls who find their lives too difficult and they abandon the lives. They find the body too argumentative, too recalcitrant.
That's true.
And they just say, I didn't sign up for this level of harassment, I'm out of here, and they put the keys by the door and leave. And there are also lives that are just stolen by roving bands of body-snatching souls, and often lives that are viewed as not resistant and easy to work with are just stolen over and over again in quick succession.
That's true.
And psychic people often fall into that category. But the point is that there's so many different things that can occur to disrupt a bonded unity of soul and body and life.
That's true.
That to ignore that reality doesn't make sense, and therefore the soul who is in the life during the moment of the session might not be there the next day even. That's because true. They've gone to sleep and they've gotten tumbled in the currents, and just like everybody else they blow out of there unless they have a sticky quality, which is rare.
That's
which
true.
Does exist. There are souls that are really good at kind of locking into the life, and
That's
they
true.
don't get bumped out, but there are other souls that keep a lighter grip, and they're just out on the very first ba-boom, and poosh, there goes the soul.
That's true.
So therefore it doesn't make sense to have the soul, either resident or higher soul, be the client, because they're going to be gone tomorrow.
That's true.
And we want to serve something that's more lasting, and we can serve the soul plan, which is going to be what the life is judged on when the life ends.
That's
and
true.
Also the life itself. Those two things are both of value. And so to view the life and the soul plan as the client makes more sense than viewing the higher soul as the client. And we're sad about it too, in answer to that very sad presence. But what doesn't work still doesn't work.
That's true.
Do you have any better ideas? I feel a lot of wishing for things to be different, and we also wish for things to be different.
That's
but
true.
Wishing doesn't make it happen. What now? If there were to be a backup plan to avert complete collapse, what might some ideas be? And they're saying, why don't you just get people to live their soul plans? We don't know how to do that.
That's true.
And as best we can tell, nobody does. That's been the plan A for at least the past 5 years, is just force them to do it. And it doesn't work. When did that change? They're asking when that happened. Might have been sometime in 2013.
That's what it feels like.
Yes.
After May.
After the May event that was supposed to get the Vanavanovs and the Christ Presence community to work together.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was worth a try, but they hate each other, and they hate each other really deeply, and when we are sitting in the room, so to speak, or when they are sitting in our energy, the energy body of the host life, when the host life is hosting Vinavinovs, what they're saying about Christ presences is definitely true and extremely reasonable.
That's true.
And when Christ presences are occupying these facilities, what they're saying about the Vinavinovs are also true and reasonable.
That's true.
They just don't get along. I'm sorry. And so they're not working together in answer to somebody's question.
That's true.
And about the time that it became clear that that was just a no-go, that those two groups were not interested in working together, is about when there started to be this push to somehow force the denser presences to do what they were supposed to do, which is something that the higher powers have not themselves been able to do. So that's a little crazy. There's a disconnect there. But this push to force denser presences to live their own soul plans began then, and they still seem to think it's a good idea.
That's true, really gripping onto that idea.
Really holding on to it, but the data strongly suggests, and some might say proves, that that doesn't work. If that were going to work, wouldn't it have budged the needle by now? Budge the needle on what? Somebody's asking. On the oppositional defiant disorder to the soul plan.
That's true. There's a huge opening upstairs now.
Let's just pump up dead children and their environment who really want to get to the light, right on up through that big opening. Higher, 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 higher. And maybe in such a way to reestablish upward flow, which helps people's intuitive channels blow upward, at least while they're sleeping, and gives them a chance of listening to wiser minds above, because some people actually want to hear the input from wiser minds above and are trying to, but the channels are entangled in the channels of everybody else and dragged down, and now they're in the muck. And that's so true. They might think they're asking up, but they're actually asking down, and we know that feeling, and we have traced the intuitive channels and then found the tangles, and then oh my gosh, look where this is. So no judgment. But it's extremely challenging to maintain alignment, and it takes continual focus, and the second that we stop focusing on it, the channels drop the second. And we've been working on this for coming up on 29 years now.
That's true.
With focus and intent to succeed.
That's true.
Giving it that old college try. And it's not something that's going to be achievable in one life.
I don't think so.
But that doesn't mean that we don't continue to try, and this is how we achieve it in a life, or 2 or 3 or 20, is that we continue to try moment by moment by moment by moment. For whom is the message, and why do you ask?